morning, everybody. Welcome to Storytime. Today our theme is one that is near and dear to my heart, and that is possums. If you came to my outdoor story time in the fall, you probably met a very good friend of mine, and today you're going to get to see her again because she has really grown and changed a lot since the fall. You know, possums are marsupials. That means that they give birth to a live baby that's usually about jelly bean size, and then the baby crawls inside a pouch and continues to live and grow there for a long time afterwards because they're not fully formed yet. You might know of some other kinds of marsupials like kangaroos and koalas, but possums are the only marsupial that we have in North America. So that's really cool. You know, there's a kind of an interesting thing that I found while I was doing some research for this theme and for my friend. We spell possum with a silent O at the beginning. Now, if you see it spelled without the O, it means it is the Australian variety of possum. But there are a lot of people out there who don't know that. And so in some of the books that we're going to read, you're going to see them spell it without the O because they didn't do their research. We're not going to hold it against them. I'm sure these books are going to be really fun and you're going to love them, but it does make a difference whether the O is there or not because the Australian possum is a different species than our North American possum. The North American possum is a nocturnal animal. That means they're mostly busy at night. The male is called a jack, the female is called a Jill, and the babies are called joeys, just like kangaroo babies are called joeys. So there's some fun facts about possums, and we're going to learn a lot more today. We're going to start our story time with our song, and then we're going to jump right into our stories. So let's sing. For our song, we need 3 signs. We need more, read, and happy. Ready? The more we read together, 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 the more we read together, how happy we'll be. Big books and small books and short books and tall books, the more we read together, how happy we'll be. Excellent job. Let's get started.
Possum and the Summer Storm. Words and pictures by Ann Hunter. Possum looked out one summer afternoon. "Time to come in," he called to his baby possums. "Looks like we're in for some weather." Thunder crashed, wind howled. The possum family watched as the creek rose. "Hang on tight, children," Possum yelled as their brush pile home was swept downstream. "Oh, Papa, our home is gone," cried the young possums. "Where will we live? Where will we sleep?" Possum surveyed the soggy land below. There was not a brush pile in sight. He was good at gathering leaves, but a leaf pile was not enough. "Don't worry, children," he said. "We'll find a new home." Possum climbed down. A chipmunk hopped by. "Where's your brush pile?" she squeaked. "Gone," sighed Possum, "washed away." "Oh, bad luck," the chipmunk sympathized. "I could help you dig a new home," she offered. "Dig?" he asked. "Yes, you know," she said. "We'll dig a bedroom, bathroom, larder." Possum's eyes widened. "Yes," said Possum, "that sounds very nice." The possums followed the chipmunk up to higher ground. She sent Possum to gather dry leaves for bedding while she and the little possum set to digging. "Look at our new home, Papa!" cried the little possums when Possum returned. Possum looked at the door hole in dismay. I'm sure it's lovely in there," he said sadly, "but I will never fit, I'm afraid." "Oh, dear," said Chipmunk. "I can see that now. Well, perhaps you could just use it as a basement." Possum and his children walked down to the marsh in search of a home. They found a nice one, occupied, unfortunately. "Hello, Muskrat," he called. "How did you come by such a nice house?" "It's called a lodge," called Muskrat, "and I built it myself. Cattails and mud. Want me to show you?" Muskrat followed them up the rise and showed the possums how to build a dome of reeds and mud over the burrow that the chipmunk had helped them dig. A wasp flew by. What's happening here? She buzzed. Possum's brush pile washed away, answered the muskrat. He needs help building a new home. I can make a comb of chewed wood and saliva. It might make nice windows, said the wasp, and she set to work. As they stood admiring the wasp's delicate handiwork, an oriole flew in. I heard there was some building going on and thought you might need my help, he sang. Everyone knows a nest is best. Why sleep on the damp ground when you can swing in a nest? Let me show you. The oriole wove hammock-like nests of grasses and vines in the tree above them. They all stood back. Oh, Papa, it's the most beautiful home in the world, exclaimed the little possums. How can we ever thank you? Possum asked the animals. We could never have done it without you. Thunder rumbled. Come in, cried Possum. The wind blew, the rain poured, and the animals watched, snug and dry, from Possum's new home. Come back soon, Possum called when the rain was over. My home is your home. The end. So guys, if you came to my autumn story time, you might remember that I brought with me my little possum that I'd rescued. And at the time, she was probably about as big as my hands here. And now, she is much, much bigger. She should be sleeping right now because possums are nocturnal, and that means that they're awake at night and asleep in the daytime. So I had to wake her up to come and do this video with me, and she wasn't really happy about it, but you can see how big she is. She's about 8 months old. And we're probably going to release her next month, so I wanted to be sure and show you how she's grown before we send her out into the wild to live her life. She's being very calm. And she's not, you can kind of tell that she's not really afraid right now, because when she's afraid, she'll really wrap this tail around my arm and hold on to me when she's scared, but she's being very calm. Why don't you come in a little bit closer and get a little closer look at her. So you can see, I don't know if you can see here, Babby's tail has all these little scale looking things on it and little tiny wisps of hair. And she uses all of this for feeling because she'll use this tail like an extra hand sometimes. I can always tell when she's building a nest because her tail will be all rolled up. And she'll grab things like socks and plastic bags and whatever she can find and build herself a little nest. Oh goodness, oh, her yawns are stinky. I think I'm gonna get a little something for us to feed Babby so you can see how she uses her little hands to eat. So give me just 1 second. So this is a little piece of ham I'm gonna give Babby. And she immediately takes her little paws and uses them to help her eat. She's a very loud eater. She's not quiet at all. While Babby's finishing her snack, I'll tell you a few more things about possums. You know, possums are the only marsupials in North America. A marsupial means they give birth to their young before they're fully formed, and then the young continue to grow in a little pouch. And when it comes to possums, they can have quite a few babies at once. And if a baby happens to fall out of the pouch, or when they get older, they ride on their mother's back, and if they fall off,
Mama doesn't even usually notice. So mothers don't usually come back for their babies, and that's why we went ahead and raised Babby, because she had fallen off her mama and Mama wasn't coming back. You know, possums are really helpful animals. They can eat up to 5,000 ticks a year, so they're good to have around. They also might like to eat your cat food or your dog food because they're omnivores. So they like meat and they like a little bit of fruits and some kinds of vegetation. Babby will eat crickets, she'll eat beetles, she'll eat worms, she likes ham and bacon. But she eats lots of different kinds of things, and she needs all those things in her diet to keep her healthy. And now she's had her snack, she's going to start cleaning. And possums are very clean animals. They bathe themselves all the time. And when Babby gives herself a bath, if you happen to be holding her, she'll go ahead and give you a bath too. So this is Babby. And you know, Babby, she's a North American possum. There's another type of possum in Australia, and they spell it without the O at the beginning. And it's a different species, so that O really is important because it signifies what kind of possum you're talking about. Babby has such a nice thick coat of fur, and she's on the go. You know what? Babby is ready to go back to sleep. So I'm going to put Babby back to bed, and we are going to do another story.
Rabbit and Possum by Dana Wolfcott. Rabbit had spent all morning getting her burrow ready. Possum was coming over. Rabbit had swept away the dust bunnies and prepared their favorite snacks. Psst! Possum! But now Possum was fast asleep. It's snack time. No matter what Rabbit did, time to wake up! Possum didn't stir. Until there was a rustling in the bushes. Did you hear that? Off Possum sprinted down the hill and up a very tall tree. Rabbit raced after him. Oh, don't be such a scaredy, Possum. There was a monster in those bushes. It wasn't a monster. Rabbit tried to follow Possum, but as it turns out, oof! Rabbits aren't very good at climbing trees. Now Possum was stuck. Rabbit felt terrible. Don't worry, Possum. I'll rescue you. Rabbit wanted to help Possum get down, but all her ideas made him a little uneasy. Rabbit needed a better plan. I've got it. What are you doing, Rabbit? You'll see. This will get you down for sure. There was, however, one more problem. The ladder was too short. I'm doomed. I'll be stuck up here forever. Possum was not feeling very optimistic. But Rabbit refused to give up. She had one more idea. In a flash, Rabbit took off into the woods. All Possum could do was wait. So he waited. And waited. Go fish. And waited. I wish I had a snack. Finally, Rabbit zipped back to the tree. Moose followed at his own pace. I don't like to be rushed. Possum was sure this was Rabbit's worst idea yet. It's the monster. He'll eat both of us. But I've changed my mind. I'll stay up in the tree. It's not so bad up here after all. Don't be silly. Moose is happy to help, aren't you, Moose? Possum stared at Moose's giant antlers, and his flaring nostrils, and his enormous mouth. Possum took a deep breath. I sure hope Rabbit's right. Soon enough, Possum was back on the ground. Thank you for helping me down, Moose, and for not eating us. I'm a vegetarian. Geez. Rabbit had been right. Moose wasn't a monster after all. Finally, I know what we should do next. This was by far Rabbit's best idea. The end.
Hi guys, so welcome to our Play with Your Food segment of Storytime. Today we are going to make possum pie. Don't worry, Babby's safe at home and no real possums are going to go into the pie. It's just going to be a fun dessert. So here's what you're going to need. You're going to need some powdered sugar, also called confectioner sugar, milk, vanilla and chocolate pudding, pecans, vanilla extract, cream cheese, whipped cream, and a pre-made pie crust. Now some of these things you can make yourself, like I think your recipe calls for heavy whipping cream that you whip yourself into whipped cream, but we didn't want to do that. We're just going to use pre-made whipped cream. You can also make your own graham cracker crust, but we didn't really want to do that either, so we just bought a pre-made one. So let's get started with our possum pie. So the first thing we're going to do is add 3/4 a cup of our powdered sugar to 6 ounces of our cream cheese. Now I would say if you're making this at home, you should probably use an electric mixer, but we don't have that here. So we're just going to do the best that we can to mix this sugar and cream cheese together, and you need to mix it until it is smooth. We're going to do our best. We might not get there. Okay, so I've been mixing for a couple minutes and I basically have my cream cheese nice and mixed in with my sugar. It's not super smooth, but it's not bad. It won't hurt us. So now our next step is to spoon it into our graham cracker crust. While I'm doing this, she's going to open up our pecans and start breaking them up. Oh, they're already broken. They're already chopped? Wonderful. That saves time if you get chopped pecans. Yeah. Squish them to get all the big pieces. Okay, so now we have that spooned into our crust. She is going to sprinkle on about 1/4 cup of chopped pecans. Okay, that looks good. Just sprinkle that right all over it. Yep, just like that. Perfect. So our next step is going to be to make the pudding. Okay, so this part of the recipe might sound a little bit strange. You're going to take 1/4 cup of vanilla pudding mix and 1/3 cup of chocolate pudding mix. And this is the part where you're going to add your vanilla extract. We need 3/4 teaspoon. Okay. And then we're going to use 1 3/4 cup of cold milk. So we've got 1 cup. Okay. Now we're going to start whisking that for 2 minutes. Get in there. Whisk it. So it's been almost 2 minutes and this is what it looks like. It's getting really thick. Once I'm done whisking, I'm going to let this sit for 2 minutes and then I'm going to add it to the top of our pie. now we are going to spoon it over the top of this layer of the pie. Okay, so here comes the not so fun part. Now the pie has to go into the fridge for 4 hours. So maybe make this first thing in the morning and then it'll be ready for your lunch. But we're gonna stick this in the fridge and we'll come back as soon as it's nice and chilled. Okay, so it's been 4 hours. Our pie has been cooling, still looks pretty good here. So the next step is to top it with whipped cream and then the chopped pecans. So I'm gonna go ahead and put some whipped cream on here. It probably would be better if the whipped cream cooled not cooled, if it warmed up just a little bit, it would make it easier to spread, but I'm just gonna do my best because we're ready for pie. So they say that, I read that maybe one of the reasons this is called possum pie is not because there's possum in it, but because there's like surprises hiding throughout it. So there's different layers and then there's nuts and stuff. So they said maybe that's why it's called possum pie. I've also heard this called Arkansas possum pie. Anyway, anything you call it, it's gonna taste good, I think. Yeah, let's sprinkle some more. Sprinkle some more on there. So sprinkle the pecans on the top. Alright. And I'm going to show you how this looks. Looks pretty good to me. So now we're going to cut into it and we're going to taste it.
Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully it's going to hold together. Very nice. Not really. All right, here you go. Here's your fork. Okay, ready to taste? That is good. That's really good. Oh my goodness. That's delicious. I hope that you guys... I'm going to put the recipe in your craft bag. I hope you make this one. If you don't, come get a craft bag, look the recipe up online. You've got to try this, it's really good. So we're gonna finish our pie, and you are gonna listen to another story about possums.
Possum's Harvest Moon. Words and pictures by Anne Hunter. Possum awoke one autumn evening. Shining through the grass was the biggest, brightest, yellowest moon. "Oh," said Possum, "the harvest moon! What a perfect night for a party! One last dance in the moonlight before the long winter. A harvest soiree." Possum hung the grass with lanterns and berries. Then he hurried off to invite his guests. "Mice, mice!" Possum cried at the meadow's edge. "Come to my harvest moon party." "We must gather seeds for the winter," said the mice. "We are too busy to come to your party." Next, Possum peered into a pile of leaves. "Come out, crickets. Hop along to my party under the bright harvest moon." "We are tired from singing all summer," said the crickets. "The night air is too cold now, and this leaf pile is so snug." Down by the creek, Possum found Raccoon catching fish. "Dry your hands, old Raccoon, and come to the last hurrah of the year." "Oh, I would," growled Raccoon. "But I must be good and fat for the long winter. So much to eat, so little time." Possum followed the creek to the pond. "Frogs, frogs," Possum shouted. "Come sing and dance under the great, great moon. Come to my harvest soiree." "Too late, too late, too late," chorused the frogs. "It's time for us to go underground for the winter." Possum turned sadly toward home. He looked up to the twinkling sky. "Oh, fireflies, could you come to my party?" The fireflies twinkled silently back at him. How could they work on such a beautiful night? Possum asked himself. How can they think of sleep in such moonlight? He put on his hat and sat alone, looking up at the great harvest moon. The great harvest moon rose higher. It shone down through the grass and under the leaves. It made every tired and busy creature pause. It was a moon that made them dream of dancing, of eating and singing. Toes twitched and voices hummed. How could they possibly miss Possum's harvest soiree? Raccoon rousted his crony rabbit. The crickets invited their cousins, the katydids. The mice brought the moles. The peepers hopped along after the frogs. They hurried and scurried while the night was still young. Possum could hear squeaking and scampering from all directions. And the guests arrived. They brought seeds and berries, fiddles and songs. All together they gazed up at the face of the great harvest moon. Rabbit and Raccoon settled in down by the food. They nibbled and nodded. Never, never in all our years, they agreed, has the harvest moon been so bright. No, never. The mice danced until the crickets played every jig twice, and the frogs grew hoarse from singing. The fireflies' lights flickered and dimmed. A cool breeze ruffled over the tired creatures as the moon sank low. It was time to go home. Home to dens and nests, holes and burrows. Time for winter's long sleep. "Good night," squeaked the mice. "Great party," chirped the crickets. "Until next spring," growled old Raccoon. "Farewell," piped the frogs. "See you next year," said Possum. He waved until every last guest was gone. Possum curled up in his own snug home. He looked out to see the last light of the great moon peeking through the grass. "Good night," yawned Possum. "Good night." The end.
So it's craft time. I know how much everybody loves craft time. It's one of my favorite parts of story time too. And our craft for today is going to be a little possum, of course, made from a toilet paper roll, a pipe cleaner. It's got some googly eyes and a little powder puff nose there. This might be stuff you have around the house. You definitely probably could find an old toilet paper roll, some construction paper, maybe a pipe cleaner and stuff. So if you can't come pick this up at the library in your craft bag, these are all things you could probably find around the house. But if you can make it, there's going to be all your craft supplies, plus a snack, plus a recipe for our possum pie, and a lot of other fun stuff in your craft bag this week. So let's do our craft.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Well, that's it for our story time today. I hope that you enjoyed our stories. And you know, of course, if you want to learn more about possums, we have so many books here at the library. I've even ordered a few special books that give you fun facts or just tell interesting stories about possums, just so we'll have a little bit more information for you if you want to do your own research or if you just want to read more fun stories about possums. I'm so glad that I could share Babby with you guys. I hope that you liked seeing her. I hope that if you saw her in the fall, you liked seeing how she's grown and changed. She has gotten so big. And I'm gonna miss her when she's gone, but I know that she's ready to start her life out in the wild like she was meant to. So we're gonna say goodbye for today, and we're gonna sing our goodbye song. For our goodbye song, we need 3 signs. We need time, bye, and friends. Ready? It is time to say goodbye to all our friends. It is time to say goodbye to all our friends. It is time to say goodbye. Clap your hands, wink your eyes. It's time to say goodbye to all our friends. Bye guys. See you next week.